big picture is conference championships, right? So
Right.
one thing Darian Rencher brought up on our show earlier this week was the weight of a conference championship and how hard it is to go undefeated in a season. And realistically speaking, there's a really good chance that we're going to have 2 undefeateds, one from the Big Ten, one from the SEC, right? But then there's going to be that looming kind of elephant in the room. And does the committee bring a second SEC team, whether that be a one loss, and this is if Georgia wins the SEC championship, right? Do they bring a one loss Tennessee team, or do they bring an LSU team who's a 2-loss team from the West? Or does the conference championship actually carry weight this year? And are we going to see a one team from the SEC, one team from the Big Ten, and then conference championship, whether it be ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12? Because let's not forget, even though Oregon went down, and I'm sure I'm getting ahead, but this could be a great segue for you here, George. Oregon went down, but we got 2 other teams sitting down in LA that have 1 losses and are going to be able to control their own destiny here heading out for the rest of the season. So that's, I think, a really good conversation to have.
Well, let's go into that conversation. Oregon did go down tonight, 37-34 to Washington. They hosted Washington at home. Just like Oregon, under new management, both teams new coaching staffs, both teams new quarterbacks coming in from big Power 5 conferences. They clash. Oregon put up 592 yards of offense, about 70 yards better than Washington. But Washington closed that. They closed their case in the last 2 drives of the game. Michael Penix first had to catch up, then they went ahead with that last-second field goal. Washington now 8-2 trips up Oregon, which Hack is right. It gives new life down here in Southern California for the 2. Blood rivals, Bruins and Trojans. They now have new life. When you watch that, Knicks had so much buzz. I call it love. I don't want to call it hype because like they had to bounce. But that win, that loss against Georgia was so brutal. It took us a month to look at them normal again. The black eye to go down, all the healing to go back down. And now they've been a buzzsaw, and then they ran up against a bigger buzzsaw tonight. Hack, I'll go with you first.
Mm-hmm.
How much does this open it up for the 2 LA teams? Does this weaken the Pac-12? Because a lot of people saw Oregon as the most complete team out west. Or is it just, hey, it's business as usual? They'll sort it out down there in LA, and then the Pac-12 still has a shot.
Well, here's the one thing that I think we don't pay too much attention to on the East Coast is just because we don't get to see that conference all that much is, I mean, you're talking about a Washington team that's 8-2. You're talking about an Oregon team that's 8-2. You're talking about a Utah team that I believe is also sitting at 8-2 right now. Am I wrong with that, or do they have 3 losses?
2. They lost to Florida and UCLA.
Florida and UCLA, right?
I think that here it comes. I'll find out. Go ahead.
But anyway, it's a really good or a really good Utah football team. And then you have a 1-loss USC team and a 1-loss UCLA team. That's a damn good conference, no matter how you cut the cake, right? And again, we talk about how hard it is to win go undefeated, let alone win a lot of football games, win 9-10 football games. You got a lot of people vying for it. And of course, I think they're all going to clash here towards the end of the year. But I think that conference depth definitely constitutes a survival of the fittest. Whoever makes it out with the best record, you got to give them a chance, and you got to give it a really hard look at whoever wins this. And it's unfortunate that this Oregon team couldn't get it done, because that would have been a hell of a story after getting their teeth kicked in by Georgia and then running through everything. Really unfortunate, but I think it opens it up to a broader conversation that the Pac-12 might be deeper than we think, might be one of the deepest conferences in the country in terms of competitive, complete football teams. And I think whoever comes out of that is definitely someone that the College Football Playoff Committee should be looking at hard for a consideration for one of those 4 spots.
Trevor, I'll give that to him. The Big Ten's 3 deep. Well, I'm going to leave Jurassic Park alone down in the SEC. ACC, like maybe a team. Big 12, they got some guys that can dance, but I don't know how many of them can leave their own neighborhood and go dance other places. Pac-12's got 4 teams, to Hack's point. 2 in LA, Salt Lake City with the biker gang, and then the Ducks
5.
who played it, maybe 5, because they got Washington beat by a team that I wasn't even going to put in there in 5.
8-2.
Does this bolster the league some? should a one-loss, close loss, Ohio State, Michigan loser, or a Tennessee that wants to also come in as a bridesmaid, can this hold up the Pac-12's this broaden its shoulders, I guess, when the case gets made late in December about who goes where?
Yeah, I think Hack made a great point. Let me paint this picture for you and frame this up as a question to you guys, and you tell me how much the Pac-12 kind of weight holds. So let's say SEC champ, let's say it's Georgia. Now, this is obviously a scenario that, barring anything crazy that happens, like LSU coming up and biting Georgia in the SEC title game. Let's take that out. SEC undefeated champ, Georgia, they're in. Let's say TCU goes undefeated, wins the Big 12, they're in. So there's 2 undefeateds that are in. So now you have basically 4 decisions for 2 spots, and you guys tell me who you're putting in.
Well, there's also going to be an undefeated. There's going to be an undefeated Big Ten team.
Correct.
Yeah, between Michigan or Ohio State.
That's what.
So
that's
an automatic.
Okay, yeah. So there's 3 spots. There's 3 spots taken, and so pick one of these 4. That's right. One loss Pac-12 champ, whether that's USC or UCLA. One loss ACC champ. A one loss SEC team, which would be Tennessee, or a one loss Big Ten team, which is the loser of Ohio State and Michigan. You got to pick one of them. It sounds like you guys are saying the one loss Pac-12 champ should be in at this point because of what has gone on this season out west, right?
Not necessarily. I was giving credence to the fact that the Pac-12, like Hack was saying, they've got some gamers. It is not too deep, and then the rest are just kind of just rolling for the ride. But in your scenario, the Pac-12 and ACC champ coming out with one loss, and whoever loses this in the Big Ten is going to lose to the next best team in the country outside of Georgia. They're going to lose to the next best team in the country. And then if you threw the resumes away and said, all right, meet in Dallas, meet in Nashville, meet in wherever, the Big Ten loser against any of those 5 Pac-12 teams, how many people would hop on the side of the Pac-12 teams? Any of them. Or Tennessee being a bridesmaid, how many would hop across the river with any of the Pac-12 teams? And I'm not even putting Clemson in this.
But that's kind of where I'm getting at, though, earlier, George, is like, we can sit there and probably dissect that, right? Like, and everyone's going to have their own flavor. You know what I mean? You're probably going to make an argument for somebody else, whereas I'd make an argument for somebody else, and Trevor would make an argument for somebody else based upon the optics. If you're just judging like optics, watching tape, who's better, who's not, like who's the best 4 teams, that's a really hard conversation. That's why I said I think college football is structured in a manner where we have certain milestones and we have certain badges of honor that come naturally throughout the season. That should carry some weight. And that's where I said, does a conference championship really matter in this stake, right? Mm-hmm. Because in the past, they've thrown it out with some one-loss conference championship teams with a runner-up in the SEC or something like that. Now, I don't think that there's been as much depth across the country in this circumstance as this, like in previous years, as there is this year. And that's where I think it's really unique with the Pac-12 having 5 really good football teams. The ACC's down, right? But even the Big 12 having a few really good football teams, I think that badge of honor, that conference championship badge of honor with one loss is going to carry much more weight this year. And at the end of the day, if you're a Michigan or Ohio State team who lose in one of the oldest rivalries in the sport, and then you have a Tennessee team who blew their chance against Georgia on national television, sorry, fellas. Good, have fun and have fun at the Gator Bowl.